So if you have a 2011 or newer GMC or Chevy 2500 HD or even the 3500, you're gonna wanna watch this video because I think I have a solution. We're gonna try it out to fix the sloppy steering that is present in these trucks. So my particular vehicle is a 2020 AT4 HD, but the chassis are more or less the same going back as far as 2011. Now, there's one fairly important thing, or I feel like it's fairly important, that GM actually left off starting with 2011 model year trucks, and that's the steering stabilizer. Pretty much from the 2500 HD from 2001 to 2010, kind of the first chassis generation. There's two different body styles, but the frames were the same. All the GM trucks had a steering stabilizer equipped on them from the factory, but in 2011, they actually stopped putting them in. For some reason, maybe the steering box was larger. They just decided, you know what, we actually don't need a steering stabilizer for this truck to do what it should. Now, if your truck is bone stock, I mean stock height suspension, stock wheels and tires, this may not have as much benefit to you as it does for people like me who have a little bit wider or taller tire than stock. See, my truck, I bought it brand new back in September of 2019, so it's actually about 2 years now. When I drove it for the first 20,000 miles, I had the stock wheels and tires on it. These guys are right here. They're a 275, 65/20. They're a nice smooth tire. They're quiet. They have fairly decent traction. They've actually worn pretty well. I mean, they have a fair amount of tread left in them. And I run these kind of on and off. Sometimes I'll run my Ridge Grappler. Sometimes I'll run these. But the one difference I notice is when I do run the Ridge Grapplers, the steering, even though I've had the alignment checked multiple times, the steering seems to have a little bit of a wander in it, which is kind of strange. And I think one of the major differences between the 2020 trucks from the 2011 to 2019 is the 2020s have some sort of an electronic, it's not an electronic assist, but it's an electronic variable ratio or something weird electronic in the steering box that's brand new for 2020 and 2021 model year trucks. But anyway, the same thing is true. 2011 and newer, there's no steering stabilizer, even though Dodge, I'm pretty sure, or Ram, whatever you want to call them, they still have the steering stabilizers on their heavy duty trucks, and Ford, same thing as well. They all are equipped with a steering stabilizer. Now, 2011 to 2015 trucks, you guys are in luck. All you need to do is go out and buy a steering stabilizer. The brackets and everything are already there on the frame. You just bolt it in and go. That's a super simple thing. But starting in 2016, I'm pretty sure that's the year, 2016 and newer, they actually did not have a bracket on the frame side to mount a steering stabilizer. But luckily, on the center link, they already have the tapered hole that's drilled, even up until the 2020 trucks that allow for an installation of a steering stabilizer. You just need to come up with a bracket on the frame side, as well as, of course, the stabilizer itself. So I have the parts here, and this is what we're going to be installing today. Now, the bracket that makes this work is from Suspension Max, these guys right here. Not a sponsor post, I just bought this. They're only, I think the bracket kit, it might be around like $100. The reason why I chose this one is mainly because of this guy right here. This is a sleeve that goes through the cross member that allows you to bolt this bracket in place without having to drill a hole or put like a nut cert in. And the rest of the bracket, this actually uses a bolt on the lower control arm to pass through, and they have this little washer spacer thing, so you actually don't have to remove the bolt all the way to install it. Now this little part right here, I'm like torn because there's two different brackets on the market. I think the other one's from BDS. The one from BDS, this is a solid hole and you actually don't have this like little two-piece washer. But the thing I don't like about the BDS kit, if I can actually get that in there we go. The thing I don't like about the BDS kit is on this end, they actually have you install like a little nut cert onto the inside of the frame rather than having a through bolt with a sleeve. To me, this is a much stronger option, so that's why I grabbed the Suspension Max kit, is because of this guy right here. And yeah, it will be a lot easier to install also because of this. I would probably prefer a single solid piece, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. On the back side, there's also like a little ridge that kind of locks all that in place. So I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Like I said, to me, I'd like weld that up or something, but we're just going to throw it in exactly like it was intended. And on the other side, there's just a little hole in the center link that has this, that will accept this tapered stud, and you can bolt it in and go. Now, I do have two different steering stabilizers here, And at first I just ordered the Bilstein 5100 because that matches the shocks that I installed in the rest of the truck. I actually had Ranchos on there before, the stock Ranchos, and I took those off because they had worn out. So my thought was, you know what, let me just match everything. A steering stabilizer is a steering stabilizer. I ordered the Bilstein 5100, and I thought we'll be good to go. But there's one important difference between these two types of steering stabilizers that I have here. And the Bilstein is a gas pressurized shock type thing. Now this is intended for a steering stabilizer. It comes with a tapered stud and everything, but check this out. If you compress it, which this does compress a lot easier than their shocks, watch what happens when we just kind of set it on the table. It will actually extend back to its normal length. Now, when you have this mounted in a dual steering stabilizer configuration with one pointed this way and another pointed that way, say in like a solid front axle Dodge or something like that, then everything is good because the forces will balance out. There's no unequal force pushing one direction or another. But in an IFS GM truck, you can only mount one steering stabilizer, or you can easily mount one. And if I put that in, I feel like we're gonna have a constant force pushing the truck a little bit to one side. Now, is that a big deal or not? I don't think it would be a huge deal, but I think it definitely would annoy me because I want to be able to drive straight and true down the road without having to constantly put even the slightest amount of pressure on to compensate for that pressure added by the steering stabilizer. So, and all this is actually detailed on Suspension Max's website. This is the only reason I even found out about this, that there was a difference. The Rancho steering stabilizer, this actually is, it doesn't have that pressurized gas in there or whatever makes the Bilstein do that. So you can push this guy down and it's going to stay exactly where you leave it. It's not going to get any longer or shorter, where the Bilstein, man, that thing pushes all the way out and it just kind of stops. So which one of these would perform better? I definitely think that the Bilstein is a little bit better quality damper than the Rancho, but in this case, it's not like holding up the weight of the truck like the suspension would be, so I feel like the Rancho is going to be just perfect for what we have to do today. Now, yes, it is going to bug the crap out of me that I have two different brands and two different looks of dampers under the truck, the 5100 shocks, now the Rancho steering stabilizer, but just one of those things I'm going to have to tell my OCD to get over it. It's going to be okay. And I think by installing the steering stabilizer, we're going to make the truck drive a little bit straighter and truer down the road. Now, there's two conditions that I feel like this damper is going to correct. Number one, I just kind of mentioned it, when you're driving down the road, for some reason with the wider tires on there, they are balanced and alignment has been checked, the truck just feels a little bit floaty or a little bit loose. Like it just kind of wants to do its own thing. It's not bad at all. It doesn't like do death wobble or anything like that. But it feels like a little bit loose. And like I said, I've had the alignment checked multiple times. The wheels are balanced. I've rotated the tires. But whenever I put the stock wheels and tires on, it drives exactly like it should. Now, I believe it has something to do with that weird electronic controlled steering box. But anyway, the next thing that I want to correct is whenever I don't really off-road this truck, but a lot of times I'll be driving in dirt or over some like little rocks or something, like a construction site type situation. And you go over a little bit of a bump and it definitely puts a jar and it kind of pushes the steering wheel a little bit in your hands. And it's something that I want to try to eliminate, but mostly it's the highway driving thing. So today we're going to be installing a steering stabilizer. I'll show you all the steps that it takes. So let's get to work. I do need to return this guy. We're going with the Rancho. So overall installation is very straightforward. I do have the ramps to drive the truck up on just to kind of get a little bit more room to work underneath. I don't think you even really need to do that. I mean, you can fit under these trucks fairly easily. They are pretty tall. You do have to take the front and the back skid plate off. Not a big deal. Those are 15 millimeters. They zip right out. And then even though GM did not include the bracket on the frame side, at least they were gracious enough to put the tapered hole in the steering center link, which is basically the whole reason why this is possible. Otherwise, you'd have to have one of those little things that kind of U-bolts around the outside of it, and those just never seem to work. So anyway, very easy installation. I think even with filming, this only took me like 45 minutes. And if you were just plain working, you could probably knock this out in like 15 to 20 minutes tops. So very easy installation. You just need basic hand tools. I'm really happy with how everything went. I really love the fact they have that sleeve that goes all the way through the frame with the flange or the washer on one side of it. The only thing I am a little bit leery about with the Suspension Max kit is how they have that little two-piece washer thing that goes on the bolt for the lower control arm. Now, I do acknowledge that it makes it way, way simpler to install this. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, it might be better to have it kind of in one piece. And I think we'll be fine. So basically what I'm going to do is put about 100 miles on it, and I'll come back and just kind of double check the torque on that lower control arm bolt. And just as long as nothing's backing out or nothing's loosening up over time, I think we'll be golden. So the whole kit costs 180 bucks. And for me, I feel like that $180 is a really good investment in how this truck is going to drive. But there's really only one way to find out. So let's go for a drive. So first thing I noticed driving through the neighborhood just to get out to the back road here, it was nothing, which is actually a good thing because that means there's no extra effort required to turn the wheels back and forth. Now, I've driven plenty of trucks with steering stabilizers and they felt normal, but I've never done like a no stabilizer to having a stabilizer present comparison just to see what difference it would make. And just low speed driving through parking lots, turns, things like that, literally no difference at all. The next thing, now that we're out on a back road here, I'm doing like 60, 65 miles an hour, which of course is the speed limit here. This is a little bit of a windy road and it's most noticeable on a perfectly straight road, but at about this speed, it would that's where this problem would kind of manifest itself, where you could hold the wheel really, really lightly, like with just two fingers. You could almost feel it just kind of rocking back and forth just ever so slightly in your hand. But to me, now with that stabilizer in there, I can maybe feel it just ever so slightly, but I feel like it's taken probably 75% of that out of the equation, which to me is a huge win. Now, I have heard some people say online that, oh, a steering stabilizer was not intended for this type of truck because it has the electronic assist steering, and it'll ruin how that is calibrated or whatever. But to me, I notice like no downside. I don't know if that little electronic steering thing like will quote unquote self-learn. I don't know anything about it, but I'm driving the truck, it drives straight, and it's taking away some of that vibration in the wheel. So I'm happy, and the best part is it's 180 bucks for the stabilizer and for the bracket. So if you have like an 11 to 14 or 11 to 15 truck, whatever the year breakdown was, all you gotta do is buy the stabilizer itself and throw it in there. And if you have a 16 and newer truck, you gotta just spring for that extra bracket. But like I said, super simple installation. It's 180 bucks. That's pretty affordable. And I see zero downside, only upside. So I'm going to call this installation a win. Now, in terms of other stuff we have left to do on the front end of this truck, we talked a while ago about pitman and idler arm issues. When I took it into the dealer to complain about the noise in the steering column, which still is there, by the way, they said, oh yeah, your idler arm and pitman arm are shot, but we're not going to replace them because of your larger tires and the leveling gear, which, whatever, I didn't expect that they would, and I'd rather upgrade anyhow. But when I was under there today, I greased everything up, and I just kind of wiggled everything real good, and I didn't honestly see all that much play, but I still probably am going to upgrade at some point to the Kryptonite. I think they call it like a death grip, the idler arm, the pitman arm, and the center link, the stronger tie rods, the whole deal. So I'll do that in the future. But other than that, this truck is doing pretty good. I mean, we got 41,700 miles on it right now. It's really, I can't say it's never let me down because it has had some issues, but I still like this truck. You know, I know some people have had much worse luck with these 2020s than I've had, so I don't know if I got a good one or what, but then again, good one is debatable because the transmission did fail. I don't know. I still like the truck. I don't care what's wrong with it. It's been great to me, and I love it. I'll probably keep it forever. Thank you guys for watching. I do want to say that. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think of the whole stabilizer versus no stabilizer issue. Click the like button on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.
Thank you for watching. I'll catch you again in another few days.
Alrighty guys, I just couldn't help myself. I had to weld it together. I've been thinking about it, and the more I thought about it, I figured it'll be just a lot more secure, at least in my mind, with this thing fully welded together. So I cleaned it up, TIG welded it together, and putting it back together, yeah, it was a pretty big pain in the butt because number one, I still have the weight of the truck on the suspension and stuff like that. So it doesn't move a lot, but this control arm here does kind of flop up and out to the side a little bit. So yeah, it took a little bit of work to get this bolt back through the hole and everything lined up, but now I just feel a whole lot better about it being welded. I don't think it would have gone anywhere, but I guess it's just for peace of mind if nothing else. So now this is the final installation.